Fog of the Forsaken. Written and read by Sage Gordon-Davis. With OK Weird as Meg Carr, Jace Maxwell as Professor Lux, Charlie Dorset as Mrs. McAllister, R.P. Winters as the Lamplighter, and Sako Toomey as the Darkman. Produced by Moonbunny Creative as part of the AuthorTube Audiobook Anthology Volume 2, created and run by Orla Hart. The sound of the curfew bell echoes through the empty library. Meg's book falls from her hands, hitting the worn surface of the desk with a resounding thud. The professor looks up from his own research and appears to notice her for the first time.
Miss Carr,
he says, his voice full of surprise and concern.
You should have left an hour ago.
I lost track of time.
Never mind. You'd better hurry. Did you bring your mask?
He asks. She shakes her head.
I'm sorry, Professor. I hadn't planned on...
Take mine.
He hands her a large, unwieldy gas mask.
Go. Quickly.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry.
She says again. She hurries towards the heavy doors of the library, pulling the mask on. She fishes her gloves from her pocket, struggles into them, and puts the hood up on her coat. He holds the door open, and she rushes through.
Good night, Professor,
she says as she passes, her voice muffled by the mask.
The light guide you,
he replies. The door closes, and Meg waits to hear the bolts being drawn across it before she steps out into the darkening street. From up here, the city seems peaceful, safe. Some might even say beautiful. The lights that span from the harbour to the palace twinkle on one by one as the lamplighters do their duty. But the lamplighters will be heading home now, and the darkmen taking their place on the streets to catch curfew breakers, like her. And to... She shakes off the thought. Now is not the time.
Best get home, miss,
yells a lamplighter, cycling past.
Darks are on the way.
Meg raises a hand in acknowledgement but says nothing. She knows. She's been caught out before. Just the once. Not long after she came to the city. She gave them the poor innocent farm girl routine.
Please, sir, I didn't know.
And got let off with the warning then. If they catch her again, it'll be the cells for her. And then who'll search for Molly? She looks down the hill to the harbour, sees the fog starting to build over the water, and takes off running. Now it's about more than just outrunning the Darkmen. Half the city stands between her and the boarding house, and she's running out of time. She can't risk being caught by the fog, that horrible, unnatural fog that turns men into monsters. The heels of her boot clack on the cobblestones, echo off the buildings in the twilight silence. She ducks down dim side streets, weaves through abandoned alleyways. Most of them have been boarded up because they're too narrow for the Darkmen to patrol. But Meg knows there are ways through. Loose boards, hand and footholds for climbing over. These are not shortcuts. It would be faster to follow Palace Road all the way down the hill to the Docklands, and then take Cotton Lane to the Narrows, to the ramshackle building that was her lodging. But Palace Road is broad and open, risky. She goes the long way round. She clambers over a wooden fence and drops into a courtyard that must have been beautiful once, but is now filled with the general detritus of people just trying to exist. A groan behind her makes her heart race. She swings around to look into the milky white eyes of a pit. His sallow skin hangs off him, giving him the appearance of a candle halfway melted. He reaches for her with a gnarled hand. Meg steps back, keeping her eyes on him, until she feels the wood of a broken pallet at her feet. She sinks to her haunches, grabs the chunk of wood, springs forward, swinging with all her strength. There's a sickening crunch as board meets flesh. The pit drops. Meg's stomach shrivels at the sight of the damage she's done, but there's no time to dwell on it. She turns and runs. She runs with no intention other than getting home, no thought but the relative safety of the boarding house. She runs a street too far, into the open air of Cotton Lane, where she's met with the clanking of metal feet on cobbled street.
Halt, citizen.
comes the cry from the Darkman. He's close enough to see her, but not grab her. She darts back the way she came, his thunderous footsteps echo behind her.
You are in violation of City Order 857,
he calls, voice booming off the walls and cobblestones. The mechanical armor is strong, but slow and bulky. Duck, weave, dodge into an alley where he shouldn't be able to follow. She squashes herself into a darkened doorway a moment before his searchlight scours the alley. Meg closes her eyes, forces herself to slow her breathing. Stay still. Keep quiet. Count the seconds in her head. 1, 2, 3, 15, 16, 30. The light wobbles back and forth for a moment, and then it disappears and she hears the Darkman retreating. She waits a few seconds more in the doorway and then ducks out, back into the alley. Left, right again, into the narrow walk that leads to the back door of the boarding house. Meg raps on the door, the coded series of knocks that tells her landlady that it's her. The door swings open and she's met with the cold glare of Mrs. McAllister.
This
The older woman sneers, pulling Meg into the house and locking the door behind her.
is the last time you break curfew, Margaret Carr. I'll not have you bring the darks on us.
She sighs heavily, pulling her mask off.
I suppose you were with him again.
Disdain drips from her words like acid.
Yes, Mrs. Mack, I was. Because he's my boss.
You were alone with him. Don't think I don't know what that means.
It means I'm the only person in this godforsaken city who has any interest in his research.
She snaps.
And my name isn't Margaret.
The two women stare at each other, neither willing to relent.
Well, I don't approve. Not of your job, not of your boss.
Well, I don't care. My money's as good as the other girls.
Meg says. She shrugs her coat off, hangs it up, and climbs the stairs to her bedroom.